everyone. How's it going? My name is Liz Yang, and I work on the growth team at Decentralization Foundation, and welcome to Community Conversations. So this is an opportunity for you, the community, to hear from contributors within the internet computer ecosystem, as well as ask them questions live. So today we have Decentralization Foundation Senior Engineering Manager, Jeff Anderson, who's going to walk us through the Internet Computer Dashboard. And you can follow along at dashboard.internetcomputer.org. And we also have Senior Research Manager Yvonne Ann Pignolet, who will also be available for questions during the course of this call. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Jeff to take things away.
Great, thanks Liz. Let me get my screen sharing going. Okay, everyone, I'm going to focus on four main areas of the dashboard today: decentralization, governance, tokenomics, and release history. To start, when you come to dashboard.internetcomputer.org, you will see this main page showing a big interactive map that can be moved around in Zoom. This map really shows the decentralization of the internet computer. Zooming in, you can see different locations: Chicago, the data center, the node providers, and total active nodes per location. Now, going into node providers is kind of a big part of our decentralization here. So we're going to move over to the node providers list here. And you can see our little astronaut in our loading pages, of course. Let's hope my computer actually loads this. There we go. So in this node providers page, you can see a list of node providers. On this table, you can sort by names, nodes, subnets, locations. So let's go ahead and sort by nodes. And we can see here, Illusion here has 48 nodes active in 28 subnets and 3 different locations. We can click on this principal ID, come in here, and we can see more information on this node provider to show kind of the decentralization of how nodes are participating in the internet computer, how many node providers are per subnet, the types of subnets, and how they are broken out. Of course, things are loading a little slow today. My apologies. It's, of course, how demos typically work, right? We'll wait for our astronaut. Well, while this information up top loads, you can see an interactive map does appear showing the different nodes, the locations that nodes are in. You can see that this node provider actually participates in 2 locations in Brussels, as well as Antwerp. Scrolling down, you can see the list of nodes and node machines that are owned by this node provider. We can sort by location. You can see all of the nodes listed and the different data centers and the subnet IDs that these are in. So let's move over to an actual node page here. You can see a little bit of information about the node. Apologies on the technical difficulties on this loading very slow today.
It's no problem at all. It's how we know it's live, keeping things exciting.
Of course, running through it earlier today, everything was nice and fast, but you get on a demo and things like to slow down quite a bit.
It's like when you go to the doctor because you're sick and suddenly you're like cured and have no symptoms.
Yep, exactly. All right. Oh, and of course. Well, maybe we can move on a little bit here. Let's see if we can get the subnets to load. I don't know if this is issue with my computer, internet, or actual slowness on our dashboard. Guessing everyone on this call is following along, right?
We need some like music to play during these like loading moments.
Yeah, I'm assuming we have a lot of extra load on the dashboard right now. Well, what you would normally see here is a list of subnets. We currently have 30 active subnets. Each subnet we have distributed across different node operators around the world. In these subnets, we have anywhere from 13 or more node machines running and participating. Node machines are owned by different node operators. And that really is how the decentralization of the internet computer, how we ensure decentralization, ensuring that we don't have too many node providers running in a single subnet or nodes in a subnet in a single region. Well, let's go back to the homepage for a little bit. Yeah, everything is running now. Running a little bit slow. I'm assuming high load on the dashboard currently. The dashboard currently has, I believe, over 150 trillion metric endpoints right now. We do have data going all the way back to Genesis, about 20 terabytes worth of data total that we have access to. We do have a public API that can be queried as well. And that API, every piece of data that's on this dashboard can be consumed via that API, which we can put in the chat towards the end of this. Trying to find a page that will actually open for me right now that we can discuss and get back on track. Let's dig through the transactions page for a second. If you purchase any ICP on any exchange, such as Coinbase, or if you transfer any ICP between hardware wallets or any other exchange, you can come to this page here and you can view your transactions. You can always search for a transaction if needed. So we'll dig into this transaction for just a second. You can see the status completed, timestamp, the sender and receiving wallet, the total amount, and the fee on here. As Dylan was pointing out, the ICP transaction account data is coming through Rosetta API, which is also public. Rosetta API can be run locally. It's just a Docker image, and you can actually validate and search all transactions that have happened. As Jordan pointed out, the API for subnets as well is just pending forever. So it seems like we have definitely a lot of load on the dashboard currently, which is preventing us from showing this. At least some page to open.
So Jeff, we're getting a question in the chat. So Matthew is asking, are there multiple canisters which can deliver this content?
So this content currently isn't delivered through canisters, just because the sheer data on the back end currently. There is a design phase going on right now on actually serving this fully on IC and on chain. Currently, we're not at that point just due to the data. As I mentioned, we have, I believe it's close to 20 terabytes of data currently in the back end, and that is growing daily. Just due to our retention policy, we're not downsampling any of the metrics currently, and we are keeping every metric from Genesis.
Okay, cool.
So
that was helpful.
Yeah, I moved over to a development version of our dashboard. Thanks for that, my team pointed out. So let's go ahead and try to get back to this. I apologize, anyone trying to follow along, that the production version is currently running very, very slow. So we're going to come over to the subnets page. This data on the development dashboard is still live. Some of the metrics may be a little different due to development versions and testing. When you come to the subnets page, you can see a list of all of our current subnets. We can expand this out to show every one of them. We have them labeled as application system, system MNS. From here, you can see how many node machines are running, how many replicas are running for the subnet, and also the different canisters on it. Let's go ahead and open this NNS subnet, get a little more information on here. When you open the subnet, you'll see an interactive map again showing where nodes participating in the subnet are actually located. So the decentralization of this system and the NNS subnet, you can see is really all across the world here. We're in several different countries and continents. Scrolling down a little, you can see the finalization rate per subnet, cycle burn rate. Won't show for the NNS. You can see that on other subnets, as well as message throughput. Further down on this page, you have node machines participating. This is really nice, and you can query the registry currently and actually see this information for node IDs, the location, who owns it. This page here is also great for viewing decentralization. If you wanted to see how many node providers are actually own nodes on this subnet and the NNS, you can scroll down and see all of the different node providers, the locations, the node operator, and also the status of this node. This is real-time status. If a node goes down, we will see that it says down instead of up. Then if there is a proposal to replace a node, you can validate this information by coming to this node info, seeing who owns it and that it is down. And if a proposal to replace a node is approved, you will see that a new node is then added. From here, you can click back on the node machine information. Very straightforward, just who owns the node, where it is, the data center, and the provider IDs. Okay, I'm going to move on back to governance here. Governance is huge for the IC. It's a topic that a lot of us are very excited about. Coming into this governance page, at the top, we show current annualized rewards for voting based on the dissolved delay of your neuron. You can slide this to really make decisions on how long you want to set this dissolved delay for your neurons, what your return and rewards are going to be. We have fun little charts here showing the total number of neurons over time, voting power, average voting power, and participation rate. A little bit below, we have this chart. This is also an interactive chart that you can sort by, title, ID. You can filter by topics. So I'm going to filter out some of this noise, and we'll just go into governance topics here. Here we have an open proposal, motion for NNS neuron ID indexing. You click on this and see what's currently going on. This is real-time voting results. We have about 1% yes, 8% no. This has been formatted really nicely, so you can see actually the summary and the context of this proposal. There's some links to the forum in here. You can see when it was created, and a little further down, this is a brand new feature that was just put in actually yesterday, showing real time the current voting history for this. So if you went in there and you had a lot of voting power and you voted yes or no, you should be able to see that reflected here. And we are also listing the known and named neurons. These are the neurons that you can set your neuron to follow and how they're voting. So if you ever want to see how your neuron that you're following has voted in the past, you can come back to this governance list and you can click on any open or any executed proposal. Scroll down and you can see how these named neurons have voted. So you can really align, how you're following, your neurons are following based on how they're voting and how they voted in the past. And you can see the voting history here. You can see whether wait for quiet was, if it flipped or if it extended as well. We'll go back to this open and I'll show you where it flipped. So here you can see that the voting flipped from an overall yes to a no, which did extend the voting period out, which is, you can see here on this side. One second. All right, now for neurons, we have this new neuron page, which, this dashboard is constantly being updated and new features are added. This is a fairly new page that has some really nice and pretty charts on here that currently show total ICP staked in neurons that are broken out between, the different years and dissolve delays. It's really nice to see the total number of ICP that's locked up in the 8-year dissolve delay and 8-year neurons. You know, the 8-year crew is pretty strong. And scrolling down a little further, you can see the current not dissolving. So ICP locked in neurons that are not dissolving and neurons that are currently dissolving. And those are also broken out over time as well. 0 to 1 all the way up to 8 years. Below this, we have a list of neurons too. You can find your neuron in here. It's obviously a little challenging if you wanted to scroll through every neuron or even sort by ID. So we recommend that you come up to the search and paste your neuron ID in here, and it will bring you actually to your neurons. So let's look at this one here. When you come into a neuron page, you will actually see the dissolve delay and the annualized rewards and daily rewards for your neuron. So if you're curious as to what you should be getting, you can come in here and see it. And you can also change the slider. So this 1 year and a day, you're getting about 1.96 ICP in daily rewards. Well, if you brought this up to, let's say, 4 years, you can see how that directly impacts your daily rewards and your annualized percentage. Scrolling down on this page is a little more information on this neuron, age bonus, total bonus, but real importantly is how this neuron has voted in the past. If they voted yes, no, you can also filter and sort by this. So you can see what they voted no on, and clicking brings you right to the proposal again. Move on a little bit to tokenomics, and tokenomics, we'll just discuss a little bit on this chart what we decided to add here just to give visibility and transparency into rewards. This page here, or this chart, should show current voting rewards versus projected. What we publish is projected voting rewards all the way up to year 9 and above, and where we currently are as opposed to what we projected. On this chart, we show total ICP that have been minted for rewards. You can hover over here and actually see the ratio of ICP for node providers versus governance rewards, dispersed versus undispersed, and the total. So since Genesis, you can see how that has gone up for all node rewards and governance related rewards. Then we have total ICP burned, which our burn rate really jumped up here with some new canisters that were created. And this is broken down into fees versus transactions versus burned, burned versus fees. Then a little further down, we have the total ICP supply since Genesis. You can see total versus circulating and how this has changed over time. Again, this data will be here. We don't downsample. So in 3, 5, 8, 15 years time, you'll be able to see this, and filter in and how it looked at a certain point since Genesis. Okay. I'm going to move over to our release history page. This is another newer page that really, it shows all of the releases since Genesis. You can see the Definity team has been pushing out releases on a regular basis. Here are all of the releases. You can kind of see the commit hash as well as the date. So we've had 56 total releases since Genesis. And over on the right side, you can see the subnet upgrades. So when they were applied to subnets, 657 since Genesis. That's a relentless pace currently, and it's really nice to see how often we are responding and pushing out updates. Scrolling down, you can actually see release notes on these. We do have links to GitHub, so you can actually see what was in that commit hash. Then you can see when the subnet itself was upgraded, and it was linked to the proposal. So clicking back to this proposal, you can see that proposal was to upgrade the subnet to this commit hash, all of the information around it. And you can see that Definity Foundation and Our Computer, we abstained from this since it was governance related. Also really proving and showing that we are trying to let the community run this. Go over a few stats on the main dashboard again, and then we'll open this back up to some Q&A. these are pretty self-explanatory. You can see total blocks created. Flow is, our current block rate for, with total subnets. And you can see that we have 30 total subnets, and based on our finalization rate of around, 30.1. So each subnet's finalizing just a little over a block per second. On here, we have our total supply, circulating supply, transaction fees, just a quick little snapshot of other data that you can dig deep into by navigating through the menus. And a nice list of canisters, our message throughput. It's pretty high. It's nice to see this when we do some stress testing jump up pretty high as well. And on here, we just have snapshots of transactions, proposals, neurons, everything you can click on, you can sort, you can dig further into. And as I mentioned, this dashboard is constantly evolving. We are pushing out updates to this several times per month, constantly adding new features. And we would always love to hear some community feedback on some features that we can add in here. All right, so with that, I'm going to hand this back off to Q&A.
Awesome. So I had just mentioned in the chat that if anyone has any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat. Otherwise, we can keep the conversation pretty open-ended. I know there were a couple of technical difficulties with the demo. So if you need a second to think through questions, that's definitely fine. I also know that we have a lot of other people from the Dfinity team present on this call. So if you have something, if you have a question around a topic that is not directly related to the dashboard, we're also happy to field that to see if we might be able to get you the answers that we need. And yeah, Jeff, I know it was like a more challenging presentation just given some of the technical difficulties, but I think you handled everything with aplomb. And let's see. Okay, so we do have a question from Matthew Hammer in the chat. So he said, very cool, just curious, how will the policy of not downsampling the dashboard data work in the long term after years and years?
Yep, after years and years, it will become a challenge. Our goal is to try to move as much of this data on chain with how inexpensive it is to store and retain data on the internet computer. Storing the data is not necessarily the issue. It's more of the indexing and performance around it at that point. But our goal is to still not downsample as much as possible.
Great. Thank you, Matthew, for the question. Thanks, Jeff. So another question from Christopher, is it possible to go further back in time regarding number of canisters, I presume for the dashboard?
Yeah, I'm assuming you mean here. Right now, we currently have, I believe we're limiting to 3 days here. We are working on charts that go all the way back in time. As someone else, I think someone put on here, we do have a public API, which may be responding now. So you can come in here on canisters and you can see, I believe we have a canister. I'll have to find the link for it, where you can provide parameters on start and end times. So you could pull it that way. There is a plan in the future to have the ability to pull from beginning of Genesis all the way to whenever, or show certain time frames on all of the charts.
Thanks, Jeff. So a question from Daniel. This is completely unrelated, but does ICP have a solution for indexing large amounts of data in the future? Something like a decentralized Elasticsearch solution?
That might be something that I hand off. Ivan, do you have any insight into that?
Here, let me make sure you're on in. Oh yeah, can you,
yes.
Do you have the ability?
So I don't fully understand the question, maybe. So what aspect there?
Something along the lines of either big map or a way of indexing large amounts of data on the IC.
I don't know where. I know that this has been discussed, and I think it is on the roadmap, but I don't know where on the roadmap it is.
Yeah, so Daniel added some additional context to his question. He said that if if you wanted to theoretically build a search engine, he would need to search like a really big array. So is there a way of like making that process a bit more efficient?
Yeah,
but if we don't have, yeah.
Right now, I don't think there is, but this is one of the things we do want to address, that's for sure.
Okay, thank you guys. And Jordan did chime in with regards to the last question. He said, you can do this with a database solution. You basically aggregate the information and store it in a manner that is queryable, like with SQL or with GraphQL. So Matthew has an additional question. He says, unrelated, but almost all of the ICP data centers are in North America and Europe. What are the plans of getting data centers into other parts of the world?
I can answer a little bit to that. If you notice on this map, we do have these upcoming data centers. There are a lot in Europe. We do have quite a bit of node providers and locations that we are currently going through vetting and putting proposals out there. I don't know the current status on those currently.
And in addition, as you might know, we are working on decentralized node addition so that anyone will be able to register as a node provider. This is one of the features that we will devote a lot of resources to in the next quarter. And that will also help with a better distribution. But as Jeff said, there are quite a few more data centers that will show up on this map soon.
Awesome. And I saw this question earlier in the chat. Somebody was saying that they would love to see a community conversation session on like how to set up a node and how to run a node. Jeff or Yvonne, given our plans to make this process super easy, when do you think would be the timeline by which we could have a talk like that?
A talk about what? Sorry, I was distracted.
No, it's okay. How to like run your own node. So let's say I'm an individual. I want to participate, in running a node like within the Internet Computer Network. How do I get started? What's needed? How do I get set up? And so on and so forth.
Yeah, we will definitely provide more information about that. So right now there is a thread in the forum where we report on our progress, or where people have asked questions. I can put the link in the chat. But I agree, this will be absolutely necessary to have a lot of information about that, and probably also a community conversation.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great. So a question.
Oh, actually, I saw Luis recommended the forum post for further details. That's the one that I would have posted as well. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, Luis. Cool. So question from Alejandro, what is the maximum number of blocks per second that the Internet computer can handle?
There is no current maximum. Right now, we are sitting around 1 block per second, basically per subnet. I don't think we have any kind of theoretical maximum right now. The idea is we grow out subnets. As we grow out subnets, the blocks per second will scale up with it accordingly.
Cool, awesome. So we got a question from Daniel. So he was saying, the data that's populating the dashboard, is there some kind of like API or some kind of way for him to programmatically query it for his own analysis?
There is. I put in the chat, there are 2 APIs. The original API is ic-api.internetcomputer.org. That has a Swagger interface on it that shows you different parameters that are allowed in the sample output. We are replacing that. Those APIs are being deprecated and moving over to ic-api.internetcomputer.org/v3. And if you do /swagger on that, you'll see that Swagger interface. Current APIs are open. As you can see, we are working on performance and scalability of this as everyone's hitting it at once. But all of the data that is on this front end is pulled from those APIs, so you can do really as you wish with that data.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff. So I think we may not have all of the details hammered out yet, but Mindaugas had a question. He said, how easy is it going to be for an ordinary person to set up and run their own individual node? I mean, the technical requirements should be pretty high in order to sustain the high speed / performance of the internet computer.
Yeah, there we want to make it as simple as possible, so that you don't have to that it will be straightforward, and that the NNS front-end app will walk you through the process. But yeah, more information about that will come next quarter.
Cool, thanks guys. So Matthew had a question. What would you consider the current status of edge routing on ICP, and are there any further plans for it?
What do you mean by edge routing? That's not totally clear to me. With respect to the boundary nodes and the...
So Matthew, who's the person who asked this question, if you could maybe clarify your question in the chat, I can field it over to the team. So we did get another question. So on the dashboard, there are different fields, like there's a cycle burn rate, there's like the NNS Community Fund. So what exactly is the NNS Community Fund and how do people contribute to it?
So there is a couple blog posts in the work and some forum posts about what the NNS Community Fund really is. Currently, it's a toggle switch on the NNS DApp, front-end DApp, that you can opt to join the community fund with a Neuron. When you do that, the values do show on here. These are only updated once a day, so if everyone's running in and toggling their Neuron now, it won't automatically update now. But there is more information coming out on the community fund in the near future.
Thank you, Jeff. And an additional question. So with regards to the data that's being displayed on the dashboard, is there some kind of like lag time, or is everything updated in real time?
For the most part, everything's in real time. There's probably a slight delay in metrics. The metrics are scraped and sent to a centralized system for logging and basically a large storage area for all of this data. They're pretty much real time, and we do go back to Genesis with all of these metrics as well.
Cool. That's really interesting. And going back to the question from Mindaugas around how easy would it be for an ordinary person to set up and run their individual node, I see that Luis has responded in the chat, and he said it would be as easy as opening an online banking account. So yeah, presumably as easy as possible. I'm just laughing because I just tried to open an online banking account and it was like a shit show. So so easier, hopefully, than opening an online banking account. I see we have David Fisher in the house. Hello, David. David has a question. Will there be a way to see the state of an account or neuron at a specific moment in the past? Right now, it seems like it only shows current information.
Right now, we don't really have plans to do that. I mean, would you want to see kind of what the voting power or dissolve delay or staked ICP at a certain date would be? At that point, I don't know if that's something that we would be displaying or really looking into. Yeah, so I don't really have much of an answer on that.
Cool. Yvonne, Ann, or anyone else on the team, do you know if it would be possible at some point to show historical information?
It might be possible. Yeah, that's something we'd have to look in internally in the current data.
Cool. Thank you, Jeff. So, so Yvonne, Ann, we did get some clarification on the previous question on edge routing. So Matthew says edge routing is when, for example, I want someone accessing my site from India to be able to get their content delivered from someplace closer than Chicago, as an example. What are my current options on being able to place my canister in a specific geographic location? So yeah, like edge computing. Sure.
Okay, so right now, the communication goes through boundary nodes, and for the boundary nodes, the geographic location is considered. However, then it gets to the replica nodes, which actually do sit anywhere. And right now you don't have control over that. But we are considering to have specialized subnets, for example, storage subnets or fiduciary subnets. And maybe in the future, we will also have subnets that are particularly well suited for certain regions. So yeah, in the future, this might be possible, but right now it's not.
Thank you, Yvonne and Matthew. Let us know if that answered your question or if you have any follow-ups. Thank you for clarifying. So an additional question from Alejandro, is there any way to see a transaction's canister or candid interface source code?
I don't know that. I'm not the right person to answer that.
Not certain on that currently.
Okay, well, if there's anyone on the call who knows how to answer that, let us know. Otherwise, I can like copy this and try to figure out if we can like post the answer publicly somewhere. So a question from Ryan, which I really like and am curious about. Will it be possible eventually to save my settings, filters, and so on in a personalized dashboard and maybe even set up notifications?
It's actually a really good request. We will take that request and add that to our current backlog. I know I would like to see that as well.
Awesome. And with regard to the source code question from earlier, Jordan has come in with an answer. So he said source code for a canister must be published separately. That's the only way to get the source code as far as I know. Thank you, Jordan. And if anyone else has anything else to add, definitely feel free to do so. Cool. Let's see. So it looks like we've come to the end of our questions for today. So if you're on the call and if you have any last minute questions, definitely feel free to drop them. Otherwise, we will be wrapping up the call. But yeah, big shout out to Jeff and Yvonne Ann for fielding questions and for such a great and thorough overview. Thanks to everyone else from the Definity side for being responsive, and as well as to our community members as well for chiming in the chat. So, okay.
I think there was one question that we didn't answer, or maybe I missed it. Unfortunately, I don't know the answer to that one. It's about the maximum ICP supply, but maybe someone else knows if there is a max.
Oh, yeah, let's see. We can definitely maybe answer that one offline. Typically, during the course of these community conversations, we don't answer any questions about token economics, since that's like a very specific topic that I think that I feel like maybe only certain people should respond to. Definitely not me. Okay, so that seems like the end of our questions for today. So once again, thanks to our speakers, thanks to the audience for tuning in, and see you guys later this week for a future community conversation. Awesome. Bye, guys. Take care.